Saturday, January 10th, and it's going for 3:15 p.m. in the afternoon Pacific time. And I'm sorry that I'm just now getting around to filming. I have been at community organizing events in Portland, like back to back to back all day long. One of those events was Congresswoman Maxine Dexter's listening session here in East Portland, where, as most of you know, a couple of days ago, federal agents shot 2 individuals. We did hear late yesterday evening at the prayer vigil I was attending with Congresswoman Maxine Dexter. We're seeing a lot of each other lately, or I'm seeing a lot of her. We did hear that Luis and Yorlenis are now in stable condition. Maxine said in her meeting today that it is anticipated that federal agents will take them into custody when they are released from the hospital, where they are currently recuperating after ICE agents shot them. I want to talk in detail about the Congresswoman's listening session. It was basically like a town hall today. It was packed in another video. But I want to take a moment here and talk about something that the Congresswoman said at the very beginning during her introduction. Some of you may know that my Congresswoman is one of the representatives who are bringing forth articles of impeachment for Kristi Noem. And as she was kicking off this meeting today, she mentioned how she was up at like 2 a.m. in the middle of the night having nightmares that the federal government was going to send tanks into Portland. Again, that was a nightmare that she had. And in her nightmare, tanks were being sent into Portland by the federal government because she had spoken up against what ICE and DHS are doing, because she is bringing forward articles of impeachment against Kristi Noem. By the way, when she mentioned articles of impeachment against Kristi Noem, just like the whole crowd, just like whoops, everybody stood up, thunderous applause. Just incredible positive reinforcement for that action. But, essentially Maxine was saying, I took an action that I felt was right and just. She, in her intro, said, I cannot be complicit with the federal government and what they're doing now. And so she's clearly acting on her conscience. She's acting on behalf of her constituents. She's doing what an elected representative should be doing, which is protecting the rights of the people who live in her district. But she was essentially saying, I am worried that my constituency will be punished because I am doing the right thing. And gosh, when she said that, I just thought that's what fascists do, right? When you try to stand up and exert your rights, when you try to do the right thing, they're going to bully you. They're going to threaten you. They're going to hurt you. They're going to try and hurt you. And at the very least, they're going to create this underlying level of anxiety so that even if they don't actually enact violence against you, even if they don't actually retaliate, you are already primed to worry about it, to anticipate that they might. And that in and of itself is a deterrence for you or me or anybody else doing the correct thing, the right thing, the just and legal thing. Right? And Maxine was basically saying her subconscious, was communicating to her through her dream that she worries that doing the right thing will cause the government to hurt people in Portland, to try to crack down in Portland. And I just thought, we can't operate. We can't operate from that position of, I worry what the government will do if I do the right, just, legal thing. We have to focus on what must be done, and we have to understand that they're going to try and hurt us for doing the right thing because they've got to scare us into submission, right? I believe I had to go grab my copy of the book and look it up. Sergej Popovich in Blueprint for Revolution talks about this entire concept. And I know I've discussed it at length, but I wanted to reference it again here quickly. Like so much we've been talking about, all oppression relies on fear in order to be effective. Fear of punishment, fear of getting detention, fear of being sent to a gulag, fear of embarrassment, fear of whatever. But the ultimate point of all this fear is not merely to make you afraid. A dictator isn't interested in running a haunted house. Instead, he wants to make you obey. And when it comes down to it, whether or not you obey is always your choice. And I know that most Americans are raised with authoritarian parenting, and we have a really skewed concept of obedience in general, and also of our own will, right? So a lot of people balk at that truth that nobody can make you obey. Let's say that you wake up in some nightmare scenario out of a mafia movie where some wacko tries to force you to dig a ditch. They put a pew-pew to your head and threaten to kill you if you don't start shoveling. I'm sorry, my husband still has pneumonia, y'all. They certainly have the power to scare you, and it's certainly not easy to argue with someone who has one of these pointed right at your temple. But can anyone make you do something? Nope. Only you can decide whether or not you're going to dig that ditch. You are totally free to say no. The punishment will certainly be severe, but it is still your choice to decline. And if you absolutely refuse to pick up that shovel and they shoot you dead, you still haven't dug them a ditch. So the point of oppression and fear isn't to force you to do something against your will, which is impossible, but rather to make you obey, and that's where they get you. This book is largely about the Otpor movement in Serbia. It's one of the best books I read last year. Highly recommend it. So what Maxine describes is this entire scenario, this entire tactic of fascists, where they want to make you afraid to do the right thing. Your fear of retaliation is what causes you to obey. But you have to make the conscious choice to submit. They can't force you to. So a whole lot of things happened between Maxine's opening statement, where she was talking about this nightmare and her fears, and the very end of the town hall, when a constituent stood up, and his name is Tom. Tom, thank you for what you said to the Congresswoman and to all of us. He said, Maxine, you said something earlier about your fear of being responsible for tanks rolling into Portland. And I guess I would just like to leave you and everyone else here with this. You are not responsible for their fascism. You are not responsible for their fascism. That perfectly meshes with something that I've said so often, which is it doesn't matter that much what the regime does. It matters what we do, right? They are going to try and stop us from acting. That's just a given. We do the right thing. They don't want the right thing to be done. They don't want us defending our liberty, our neighbors. They want us to lay down and give up. They want us to submit to tyranny. And that requires our voluntary cooperation, right? We have to take the acts that we know are just and right and will help advance our cause, whether or not we are fearful of how they will respond, because we know they will respond in a way that is brutal, evil, and awful, no matter what. That can't deter us from continuing to do what we know is right. And Tom's words there, you are not responsible for their fascism, I think is something that we've got to remind ourselves when we're looking, not just Congresswoman Maxine, right? Any of us, when we are looking at standing up and doing the right thing. And the way that the regime may choose to retaliate, may choose to try and scare us is hurting people that we care about, hurting our neighborhoods, hurting our cities, right? Maxine referenced how the mayor of Minneapolis spoke out vigorously. He said, ICE, get the fuck out of our city. And in response, Kristi Noem sent between 200 and 300 more ICE agents into the city. That kind of retaliation is the only play that they have. All they have are threats, intimidation, and violence. That's it. That's their whole playbook. They're predictable. We do something to try and defend our liberty, they're gonna inevitably retaliate with violence. But we aren't responsible for what they do. We are not responsible for what they do. What they want is our obedience, our submission, and we will not be giving it to them. We will be non-compliant no matter what they try to do. Because as long as we refuse to obey, and again, it is a voluntary choice, as long as we refuse to obey, they will not be successful and they cannot win. So please don't be fearful of doing the right thing. I'm glad that Maxine did the correct thing. She brought articles of impeachment. She is defending the Constitution. She's defending Oregonians, even though she anticipates that the regime will attempt to retaliate. Even if she's just fearful of it, right? She still chose to do the right thing. We cannot let fear control us. We can't let their threats control us. And we are not responsible for how they act in response to us doing the right thing. We must continue to organize and resist and do the right thing. Okay, I will be back in a little bit with a full breakdown, and then I have a bunch of other news from Oregon. I promised my kid I would do craft night with her tonight, so I may only get a couple videos out today, but I did want to talk about this really quickly. Okay, one more quick plug here for Blueprint for Revolution. Maybe your local organizing group wants to take this up as one of your book club books early in the year. Highly recommend it. All right, I'll be back in a little bit. Thanks.